It is a complete failure if I work even close to 40 hours a week. But I actually hate creating PowerPoint presentations. Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you about some misconceptions about space consulting. And this is coming from my experience as a small business owner, as an independent consultant, not as someone who has ever worked or ever wanted to work at a big consulting company. So I think that's where a lot of the misconceptions come from. Not all consultants work at these gigantic consulting companies, although space is becoming much more popular as a segment within some of these large consulting firms. My company has always been tiny. It was a freelance, independent, just me consulting company for a long time that is slowly growing into the boutique firm that it is today. So first off, one of those huge misconceptions about consulting is that you work at very long hours. Now, this might be true at a big consulting company where you are given almost no freedom when it comes to how many projects you take on and what your workload looks like. But as an independent consultant, that has not been the case at all. It is quite a bit feast or famine, especially in the beginning, where yes, you can be working long hours when you have a project, when you have a deadline, but then you're not working much at all when you don't, when there's like on the bench is when they call it, what they call it at a big consulting firm. But when there is a lot of work to do, you could be working long hours, but not necessarily the case. So I started my space consulting firm as a part-time endeavor while I was getting used to being a new mother. So I literally had a newborn at the same time I was kicking off my company. That has been a guiding star for me all of these years, is that I wanted to prioritize the work-life balance of running a company and also having children and being a mother. And so for me, it is a failure if I am working too many hours. It is a complete failure if I work even close to 40 hours a week, because that means I have poor time management, poor project management, or I haven't delegated enough. I do not work 40 hours a week. I would like to keep it that way. In fact, my 5-year growth for the company, my 5-year outlook is to actually be able to increase revenue so I can hire more people so I can work even fewer hours. And that is, to me, success. Success to me is not working 40, 60, 80-hour weeks. Success to me is being able to spend more time with my family while running a successful small business. Which brings me to misconception number 2. Consulting is very lucrative. Now, yes, okay, this can be very true for some people. There are certainly consultants that make $1 million a year or more. Often those consultants are in the news for not so good reasons. But I'm sure that there are really great, ethical consultants who make a ton of money. But again, they might be working those 80-hour weeks that I just don't value. I don't see that as something that I want to do, and I don't see that as something valuable for my company to strive for. I turn away more clients than I take on, and therefore I keep the hours low, and therefore I don't make quite as much money as a big consulting firm would. If you look at my previous video about the mistakes I made while running a consulting business, you will notice that I am chronically undercharging. That has been my number one mistake throughout running my entire small business. So I can tell you that space consulting has not been lucrative for me because I am still trying to get over some mind blocks about what to properly charge and how to value the expertise on my team. Another misconception about consulting is that we travel all the time. And of course, this might be true for, again, some of those big consulting companies, but this has not been my experience because, again, I set up my company for that work-life balance, which means that I almost never travel, and I prefer it that way. Yes, I like the occasional trip. I was traveling a whole lot more earlier in my career, and I realized that for me, I get pretty burnt out if I'm traveling more than once every 2 months or so. And so I actually structure my company and my work so that I don't have to travel very frequently at all. I can do most things remote. Almost all of my clients are remote, but I almost never travel to them because pretty much everything can be done by email, by call, by video call. We live in a society now where people are used to being able to communicate in this way. So why would you need to be essentially living at your client's site if you're not necessarily doing something hands-on? I didn't travel at all in 2021. I didn't start traveling again until about a year ago. I did 3 trips last year. I've got 2 trips scheduled for the first half of this year. I don't know about the second half, but it's actually really good for me. This amount of travel is about ideal for my circumstance, and that's the key, is my current circumstance. Maybe that'll change over time, but as an independent consultant, as a small business owner, I get to choose how I structure my work days and how much travel that I want to do. If I wanted to, I could travel a whole lot more often, and maybe I'll get to that point in the future where I choose to travel a whole lot more. But that is not necessarily what I want for my life right now, so I don't need to. There's another misconception that consultants are stuck working in offices in skyrises in cities or off on client sites. Well, not me. I've been working from home for about a decade now, and working from home means you can work from anywhere, including here at the barn, where I work for about an hour on Tuesday mornings while my daughter rides, and I can get some basic things done on my phone, such as emails, news, maybe a quick call, a teleconference if I can be on mute. And really, as long as you have an internet connection or even a cell phone connection, you can literally work from anywhere. Of course, if it needs to be a quiet space, you have to go somewhere quiet. But I often just take my laptop outside in the backyard and I get some work done while the kids are playing out in the backyard. And it's really nice to have that freedom to be able to work wherever I please. Another misconception is that we create PowerPoint presentations. Now, this might be a personal preference, but I actually hate creating PowerPoint presentations. I almost never use them, even when I'm giving talks. So I use PowerPoint sparingly, only when I feel like I absolutely have to get my points across, to have that visual backing along with my verbal information giving during a presentation. And I have no idea why anyone would think it's a good idea to present information in hundreds of slides. I think that's very poor communication. And so for me personally, I would never just give a client a huge slide deck and consider that job done. No, that is really terrible. I don't know why they do that at big consulting firms, if that's even accurate information. The way that we do it here with Astrolytical is that we actually produce reports, which is much better structured, much better organized. You got a table of contents. Everything is organized very clearly. You're not going through hundreds of slides. Instead, you've got a well-organized document that, yes, we can give the highlights during a presentation, during a debriefing if we need to, but I just find that personally to be a much better way to do things. But most of my clients, that is not the end all. Most of my clients, it's following through with the information that we give them. So we don't just give them information and leave it. We actually help them to implement solutions or to implement their next stages. Which brings me to the next misconception, is that consultants only tell you what you've already decided ahead of time or what you already know. Now, I don't know where this comes from because I have never experienced this in my life. I have worked with consultants prior to starting my own consulting company. And then as a consultant, I only take on clients that I believe I can truly help, who actually have a problem, and they might have ideas about what the problem is or what the solutions are, but they're coming to expert help, to outside help, to get that other perspective, to get an expert opinion or an outside opinion. And it is never about telling the client what they already know or telling them what they want to hear. In fact, I do not shy away from disagreeing with my clients or telling them things that they don't want to hear, because that is why they hire me. They don't hire me to be a yes man. They hire my company because we have valuable, expert, outside information and insights. So no, none of my clients hire me just to hear what they already want to hear or what they already know. It is to get some kind of outside opinion that they don't already know. And again, it's that follow through. It's what do you do with that information after you get it? And then finally, this one is one I came across when I first started my consulting company. The company I previously worked for was failing, hadn't yet fully failed, but I was already planning my next stages. And I asked around people who I thought would give me really good advice about what my next steps should be and whether or not I could start a consulting company. And one of the bits of feedback that I got was that I was too young. I was in my early 30s, and sometimes there's that misconception that consultants need to be retirement age or, much, much more senior in their careers. And in fact, a lot of consultants are. It is actually fairly common in my experience that a consultant is somebody who worked for a particular company for a long time and then semi-retires or starts their own independent consulting firm and continues to work with that previous employer because they have those decades of experience. Well, I knew that I had valuable experience, and I knew that even though I was in my early 30s, I could still contribute. Outside firms, large firms actually hire a lot of entry-level younger employees because of that outside perspective and because of that experience that those younger employees bring in. So while I never planned to have a career as a consultant, I actually found it really, really valuable to be in my early 30s, to have had a good decade of experience in my career already, but not yet at a retirement age, not yet at the point where I am outside of the loop, and still have that energy to start a new business. You can be at any stage of your career to be a consultant. So if you'd like to hire a small boutique space consulting firm that will literally work for you from anywhere, please give us a call at Astrolytical, and we'd love to hear more about your goals increasing your business in the space industry.